Hello, and welcome to a special episode of Bad Gays, a podcast about evil and complicated queers in history. I'm Ben Miller, a writer, researcher, member of the board of the Schwules Museum in Berlin, and I'm currently at work on a biography of Rudy Gernrich. And today, we don't have Hugh, but we do have a guest that I'm really excited about, the culture journalist Cameron Cook, who has just launched the newsletter Cooked, which offers pop culture essays, music playlists, and generally recommendations from an expert, which Cameron is in all things music and divas and pop culture. So, hi.
Indeed. Hello.
And Cameron is also, I'll use an appropriate expression for today's episode, a good Judy. So this episode, as you've already seen from the title, was built around a slightly deranged concept, which is that we wanted to... it was mostly the fact that Cameron and I wanted an excuse to sit down and talk about Liza Minnelli's memoir, Kids, Wait Till You Hear This, which came out a couple of months ago. But it evolved into the idea that we were basically going to look at her life through her relationships with these different kinds of gay men and kind of think about how Liza's bad gays, or were they bad? We're going to do our typical good, bad thing for each one of them. How they sort of shaped her, how they shaped her career, how they shaped this strange relationship, and I think this very self-conscious relationship that both Liza Minnelli and her mother had with gay men. They really knew what they were doing.
They did.
She does. Liza's alive.
Yes.
But
And I hope it's a long time before she, as it says in the book, joins the Celestial Choir, as she likes to call the afterlife, which who else could put it like that? I was talking about this earlier with you. Is she aware of how her life has been impacted by these men? Is she aware of how her life impacts gay men all around the world? And does she see the kind of golden thread between the two? Because as someone who's a fan, as someone who's read this book, as someone who loves her and has for a very long time, I do.
Yes.
And after reading this book, I do have several questions around that topic.
Me too. And I've been thinking in general about this kind of relationship between Liza and these different forms of gayness. One of the things that's, I think, really interesting about Liza is that she was never current. She was really cool for a while in the 70s, but it was always as sort of a revival thing. Like, what other 70s pop star is singing Al Jolson's Mammy in 1973? And, she dedicates it to her mother, but still, it's because Judy herself came out of this vaudeville entertainment moment. So from the beginning of her life, Liza has been performing in a style that is 50 years out of date. The golden age of vaudeville is the 20s, and that's the kind of entertainment that Liza's still delivering. And her whole life, her peers, the people who have careers like hers, the people who are kind of working in ways that she's working, maybe with the exception of Bette Midler, are all older than her.
Yeah, but there's something fantastical and charming about that. I think that is where the sort of gay fantasy comes into play, because she is one step behind the times in her own world, but also she had, I was talking to someone recently about the difference between Liza Minnelli and another, obviously, grand dame, Barbra Streisand. Mm-hmm. And I was like, Barbra Streisand is the Beatles, Liza Minnelli is the Rolling Stones. It's like, she has this edginess, the drugginess, which she gets into a lot in the book.
Oh, boy, does she.
There is something a little bit frantic and unhinged about her, but that always seemed under control, which I think she got from Judy as well, kind of talking about how she was her line of emotional support. She was the person that was looking after her when she was drunk and pilled up and all these things when she was a child. And I think in doing that, she was able to harness the trauma and turn it into show business, because it was her only avenue into adulthood. Because she wasn't going to be an accountant? What else could she have done with her life other than this? You know what I mean?
A flight attendant?
Literally, it's
a dental hygienist.
What skills do you have when your entire life up to that point has been picking my mother off for the bathroom floor?
One skill that you do, she could have been a pharmacist, because she did learn how to open up pills and replace the
tea,
the meth with sugar, whatever that insane story was. But yeah, there's two Liza anecdotes that have governed my thinking about this that aren't actually in this book, and they're from this profile of her that I'll link in the show notes that was in Rolling Stone in 1973, and it's an amazing article.
A classic. I've read it several times.
It is so good, and there are two things in it that really stick out to me. One is there's a description. Liza describes Judy sitting backstage, and she's actually in a really good mood. And then some gay guy comes to see her and comes in and is obviously expecting to see this diva in a moment of grand emotional catastrophe. And so she just puts it on for him and takes his hand and says, "Oh, darling, I know, I know." And then he leaves. And then Liza's like, "Mom, you're in a good mood. Why did you do that?" And she said, "Sympathy is my business." The other one being that Judy Garland reportedly told Liza Minnelli that, and I quote, "When I die, they're going to fly the flag at half-mast at Cherry Grove. They're going to be standing half erect in the meat rack singing Somewhere Over the Rainbow."
And she was right.
So they know exactly what they're doing. And Judy and Liza in their careers also kind of bridge the 70s, the 1970s emergence of the kind of contemporary gay guy, right? As a cultural figure who is potentially sexy or not tragic. And it's interesting to me that the first generation of Liza's gay fans are these clones in the 70s. And she's making music that really appeals to this like older version of themselves. It's like a link back to this other kind of world and this other kind of form.
Yeah.
Does that make any sense?
It does. It also plays into my theory about kind of gay culture in general, queer culture in general, which is when you're born outside of societal norms and it's not your fault, you understand that people have layers and that everyone has a personal life and a public life and a personal persona and a public persona. Mm-hmm. And I think that the best queer icons are aware of that as well and playing to that as well. And I think that that is where she's able to craft this character that is also somehow on the tightrope of reality and her real life. Because we know her mother, we know all the drama that went down. So like the fact that she is this tortured person and can present that in song in a way that is entertaining, it plays with this like the mirror has two faces sort of idea, which I think is inherently very appealing to queer people, which is kind of, in my opinion, what makes her the ultimate 20th century gay icon.
Well, I mean, she's also the child of a gay guy and Judy Garland. So that's like, we'll get to that soon.
There's a tweet that says that then goes on to call her the gay Kwisatz Haderach, which is true.
By the way, I don't know if this is a good time to say that in 1967, my father, Jonathan Miller, was sexually harassed on stage by Judy Garland.
Incredible.
So what was your favorite kind of jaw-dropping moment from this memoir? Because I definitely have a couple. To quote Bette Midler's Instagram post about it, and this is a sentiment that I share entirely, "I loved it. I learned more about Liza than I thought possible. Most of it left me speechless. Run, don't walk to your nearest independent bookseller."
I don't know if this was the most jaw-dropping moment for me, but it is the part that made me put the book down because I was laughing so hard and I literally couldn't continue.
Okay.
Was when she talks about dating Peter Sellers, which first of all, I didn't know they dated, let alone were engaged. Like this was news to me and I'm pretty up on her shenanigans, but that was news to me. And he obviously was crazy. She talks about him being like kind of abusive and like larger than life and really intense. But there's one point where she goes like, "I was always a prankster and I couldn't be, you know, myself around him. Like the time I pulled his hairpiece off at a dinner party." And I was like, could you imagine going up to, of all people, Peter Sellers at a packed dinner party in his home and just be like, "April Fools," and snatch him bald in front of all of his guests.
Like,
and
iconic behavior. And truly iconic behavior.
And she talks about it as if it was like, well, how could he have been mad? And I was like, lady, you literally snatched this straight man bald in front of a room full of people. And I was just like, April Fools. Meanwhile, it's November 17th. Like I was truly crying. So that was my favorite part of the book. It wasn't the most shocking, but it's the one that gave me the most pause personally.
My craziest moment in the book is when Liza Minnelli describes how she made her professional singing debut, which was in the mid-1950s, and Judy was playing a 11 o'clock show at the Flamingo in Vegas, or maybe a midnight show. And like it's a smoky room, and the crowd is drunk, and they won't shut up, and Judy's also drunk, and she gets mad. And so at a certain point, she goes to her 11-year-old daughter, who is, you know, being raised right, so at midnight she's in the wings watching her mom's show, in her bathrobe, drags her out onto the stage in the bathrobe, says, "Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Liza Minnelli," and returns not to her dressing, but to her hotel room, and leaves a 10-year-old Liza Minnelli to finish the concert for this crowd of like drunken, disorderly Vegas lounge lizards at
It's so
midnight.
crazy.
And the way that Liza presents that story is very much, oh, and she was showing me the ropes of being a performer, whatever. And honey,
Yeah.
it's one thing to be like, oh, my daughter's really talented. We're going to plan this and she's going to come out and sing a song. And it's another thing to be like, actually, you finished the show. They're too drunk for me. And I'm a grown up.
It's a lot. And there are points in the book where Liza really does come to terms with the fact that she was emotionally abused. She's not naive about it. But that part in particular, you do feel the kind of guilt of someone who's survived a situation like that, where she's like, I am Liza Minnelli and I am the person that I am because I was put in this situation. It is absolutely wild. And that's what she put in the book. So imagine the things that she decided to edit out because of whatever she's going through.
God. I mean, she put in the book a story about when she's having an affair with Martin Scorsese, and then she cheats on Scorsese with Baryshnikov, and then Scorsese finds her and her husband, who he's having the affair with her, cheating on her with, or whatever, however that works, and starts yelling at them. And meanwhile, Andy Warhol is sitting writing this all down in his diaries. That's what she left in. The other insane Judy moment was when she describes the 1964 concerts in London with the two of them together, and Judy in the wings when Liza went out and sang her first song on the first night, and she's cheering "That's My Girl." Song's a big hit. The second song, everyone claps. She looks out, and Judy's like, okay. Third song, she looks in through wings, and Judy's reapplying her makeup silently. Fourth song, Judy says to the stage manager, the audience can't hear, but Liza can, "Harold, get her off my fucking stage." And then Judy is literally doing, apparently, WWE-style wrestling during their duets to try to pull the microphone down away from Liza's face. And Liza presents all of this as, well, she was a performer. I mean, the relationship that Judy Garland had with her audience was probably the most meaningful thing that she had.
Yeah.
And no one, not even her daughter, who she also, just to be clear, very clearly loved and tried her best with, but nothing was going to get in the way of that, not even Liza.
I'm not going to go to my own personal dramas on this podcast. I was raised by a diva. I'll leave it at that. And there were definitely parts that were, I'm not going to lie, a little triggering when you're sort of like, why is the emotional well-being of this person my responsibility? I don't understand.
That's my parent.
Yeah, why am I the person that has to manage this? I definitely related to that part of it a lot. The other part about them that actually I thought was really crazy, that she kind of glosses over a little bit, was when Judy is going to debut the Judy Garland show in LA. Liza is in New York trying to make it on Broadway. She has a show that does really well. And Judy is like, oh, come to LA, do the show with me. And Liza's like, no, I don't want to. And then she hires Liza's first boyfriend to be a dancer on the show in LA. And the guy's like, great break for me, cool. And so her boyfriend leaves her to go to LA to be on the Judy Garland show. And Judy's like, well, are you coming or not? And it's this thing where those shows on the Judy Garland show are so iconic. And it was probably better for Liza to be on the Judy Garland show than to be on a show off Broadway that no one really would have seen. But to not be able to make your own decision and be manipulated like that, even if Judy could see the vision. Again, I related a little bit. I was like, this is when you're in the throes of that kind of relationship that's codependent. You love each other, but you're not able to come to terms in a way that is healthy and beneficial for everyone. It always has to be these back alley, weird deals between you and your mother.
And your daughter. Yeah, exactly. And like, that's beyond all of the moments when Judy was just not able to care for people because she was so ill in various ways. Should we start diving into Liza's bad gays?
Let's do it.
So the first, let's say, evil and or complicated gay in Liza's life is her father. So who's Vincent Minnelli?
Vincent Minnelli is a terribly talented, legendary film director who directed, amongst other things, Meet Me in St. Louis, where he met the ravishing, beautiful Judy Garland. They fell in love and had Liza Minnelli. It's interesting because in the book, he is very much a kind of savior figure. When she dives into the relationship with Judy very deeply in the book with Vincent Minnelli, she's kind of like, he was amazing. He always supported me. He was great. He was my rock, which I'm sure is 100% true. The idea that he was gay or at least bisexual is very well known, but is not really touched upon in the book at all, which is understandable.
Yeah.
But I found it interesting. There's a part very early on in the book where she introduces him and she says, I always called my mother Mama. I called him Daddy, but for this book, I'm going to refer to him as Papa. And I found that to be a very minute but telling little morsel, because even in her recounting of the events, he is kind of a counterpart to Mama instead of being his own kind of person, which she says, I never really called him Papa, but like this is the... So you get the idea that perhaps she is constructing this family dynamic for us that may not have been 100% the reality given what she lived at the time. I just thought that was an interesting detail.
Yeah, because when Vincent Minnelli married Judy Garland, what all of the gossips at the studio said was, does he like girls? And it seems like he did, actually, but he definitely also had a lot of sexual relationships with men, like a lot.
Sure, and I mean, he had other wives as well. I found an interview from The Advocate with this writer named Emmanuel Levy, who wrote a book about him maybe 10 years ago, and it was the only book so far that kind of delves into his earlier life as supposedly a homosexual man. And he got a lot of letters and stuff from his last wife. And apparently when he was writing this book, he was like, I'm going to try to speak to Liza, obviously, to get her opinion, get her account of the situation. She obviously did not return his calls. And this wife let slip, hey, she doesn't want to talk to you. She doesn't want anything to do with this. I think we all tell ourselves the stories we need to hear when it comes to our childhood and the people that were involved. I think that perhaps if her relationship with Judy was so fraught, maybe the idea that her father could have had another lifestyle or double life was maybe a little bit too much for her. She needed him to be that rock and to be that kind of stability. So I completely understand her being like, listen, I don't really want anything to do with this. But
with my father was a gay guy book.
Yeah, but the reality kind of is what it is.
But there is something with Vincent Minnelli and some other people of that time who were known by gossips to be quote unquote gay, but then had apparently extremely repeated and meaningful and deep relationships with women, is these people are getting rounded up to gay in order to turn the women who married them into the object of misogynistic ridicule. There's this biography of Judy Garland by Gerald Clark. It has everything in it, and it tells the story, but it basically presents her father. Judy Garland's father had some sort of homosexual love affair, I think also with a teenager. And the book presents that as the founding trauma of her life. And then the whole rest of her life, she was just like her mother, chasing after gay men. And then her daughter did the same thing because they could never really know how to be loved. And it's like, no, like, you know, Vincent Minnelli was, by all accounts, I mean, they had Liza, you know, they were really in love with each other when they got married. And bisexuals exist.
Fully. It's a spectrum, obviously. And
it was also the 50s, so, you know.
That's the other thing I was thinking about.
Life is different in terms of what possibilities you have.
Exactly. It's like I feel like as queer people in the year 2026, we look back at these things, and even though we all obviously have our own personal traumas, we do have kind of an embarrassment of options as opposed to men in the fucking 1940s and 50s. So it makes sense to me that if he did genuinely have attraction towards women, and certainly Judy Garland,
how can my son be gay? He loves women like Judy Garland.
And honestly, how do I put this tactfully? There is something about that era of Judy Garland that is very spiritually youthful and coquettish that I do think would appeal to a bisexual man who was like, I'm entering Hollywood, I'm going from New York and what opportunities I had there to this very curated, very public life in Hollywood. This seems like a perfect opportunity to me. not that they weren't in love, they wouldn't have been the first or last Hollywood couple to be in love and also have a sort of mutual reason to get together. You know, I mean, the two things are not mutually exclusive.
Right. I mean, for me, the thing that's more informative to me about that relationship than her marrying someone who may have had sex with men at one point was like, here Judy is marrying her director.
Yeah.
And marrying the person who was apparently a huge deal for her when she saw the rushes of Meet Me in St. Louis, and he had made her look really pretty. Only in Hollywood would you describe Judy Garland's body as having a strange shape, but she was very, very short-waisted. Costumers just regularly put her in some of the ugliest garments imaginable. I don't know if she was walking around using the F slur with a hard T all the time, but some of these looks that they were putting her in, there is no excuse for... I swear to God, she wears a gown in The Star is Born, now I'm really queening out here, that has a empire waistline under the bustle, then a mid-waist, and then a third drop waist, and then it goes out, and then it has short sleeves that are trimmed in fur.
It's gonna be Michelin.
Like,
Man.
what is this? Like, why? But he made her look really pretty and very, very, very insecure because despite the fact that she was very beautiful, the way that the MGM bosses would try to stop her from feeling powerful and asking for more money or a more sane schedule was by telling her that she was fat and ugly, which again, like literally only in direct comparison to Lana Turner on the most basic possible scales of beauty would you call Judy Garland either of those things ever. But like that was the story that she believed about herself. And so what's interesting about Liza's discussion of Vincent is not only is he this kind of rock of stability, but he's also someone who's always encouraging her creative talent, much more actually than Judy, right? Judy is offering these moments of here's a platform or here, I'll give you this leg up or what do you got, kid? But Vincent is the one who's like, oh, you want to learn how to dance? And she's learning all these dances and performing them for him after he gets home from the studio and supporting her as she moves towards being a creative artist.
Yeah, I think that his support came with no strings attached. Judy probably also in some way wanted her to be successful, obviously, but I think he was kind of just more, I'm here to support whatever you want to do. Whereas with her mother, both spoken and unspoken, it was like, if you're going to do this, you're going to be Liza Minnelli. You know what I mean? And like, I will battle you to that, and I will make sure that you're going to be like the greatest who ever lived.
And then there was Lorna Luft. Remember they were trying to make Lorna Luft a nightclub singer? And then she's in Grease too?
I don't know if you've ever read that Esquire piece, Frank Sinatra Has a Cold.
Yes.
So the iconic.
Of course I've read that.
There is a passage in the article where they talk about how Frank Sinatra used to have these events and parties at his home, and all the adults, Judy Garland, etc., would come and sing at the piano, and they would bring their kids. And so as the kind of evening progressed, it would be Liza, Nancy Sinatra, Carrie Fisher, all vying for admiration and validation at the piano.
Literally attention.
And so that is the environment that she was coming from. I feel like in that hurricane of whatever the hell was going on at that stage in her life, her dad probably was the person who encouraged her, but not with this incredible pressure of having to sing jazz standards in front of Frank fucking Sinatra.
Right.
at 10 years old.
Right.
And if you didn't do it, then you would get, lambasted or something,
Or you just wouldn't get attention from your parents.
Yeah.
Because the way that you got attention in these families was to perform in this way. I think the argument for Vincent Minnelli having been a bad gay is kind of cast in this story of Judy and Liza's lives as these lives of repetitive marrying gay guys, right?
Yeah.
That he's part of this curse and tricked Judy somehow. And as I was saying earlier, some people are just bisexual. By all accounts, it was a real marriage. They loved each other very much. They broke up because can you imagine being married to Judy Garland? Because
No.
I can't. Like, whew. Much of this not for reasons of Judy's own fault, but she was just fed speed and barbiturates every day starting when she was 13.
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I don't think he had any manipulative reason to be in this marriage. I think it was just a crazy marriage, as many people have.
Yeah, exactly. And he also seems to have been someone who really Like if we're thinking back to that sort of relationship between these different relationships between Liza and queer men, which I think Minnelli was definitely a queer man. This idea of it being this queer man who's encouraging her creativity and showing up for her models a way of being supportive to the diva without constantly be perfect for you. So, Vincent Minnelli, what are we saying? Bad, gay, not bad, not gay, bad, not gay? What do we think?
I think not bad. I think good. I think he really had her best interest at heart as her father. I think he loved her extremely, extremely dearly. I think that he was just a man who was bisexual and in a crazy marriage with one of the most intense divas of her age. That does not make him a bad gay, in my opinion.
Yeah, I would say bisexual, and I think not bad at all. I think he's actually one of the people who models a relationship with Liza that's really not conditional and that's really not emotionally abusive and that's really supportive and loving and caring. And I think it's very sweet.
Although I will say, fierce mascara, fierce smoky eye.
So we move on from Vincent Minnelli and we move through this period of her life where you talked a little bit earlier, but where she's starting her own career. There's this great moment when she moves to New York City and insists on doing it without any help, which is genuinely really admirable. Judy Garland did not buy her some fancy penthouse to go live in while she pretended to be an actress. She actually had to work and survive and figure shit out. And there's a series of minor sort of boyfriends, one of them the dancer. And I know we've been trying to debunk this Liza tragically marrying gay men thing, but if his CV item is backup dancer on the Judy Garland show, maybe...
It's like, ladies, if he likes show tunes more than you do, take the...
There is a beautiful example of this in the great classic Judy Garland Christmas show when Liza comes in and she's like, I've just been working on a dance number with my beau, want to see? And then her boyfriend comes in and is fully the gayest man in the history of recorded humanity with a black turtleneck doing these little hip swashes. And I'm like, honey... But we have to remember, this didn't read, right? This is an era when grandmothers genuinely were shocked at the idea that someone would suggest that Liberace was a fag.
My mom used to tell me this all the time, and I think about it, what you just said, as I was reading the book, where it's like, she was like, Cameron, we thought Liberace was a heterosexual man. That was the idea. The cultural blinders were on. I don't blame these women at all. You know what I mean?
But it's just so funny in retrospect. Or like Paul Lynde. Bye Bye Birdie is a preposterous movie with a preposterous plot. The most preposterous thing in that movie is the idea that Paul Lynde is the biological father of Anne Margaret. Like, because again, and if you see him in the movie, it's not that he's just a gay actor or that he was a gay comic who had this persona that was very campy and then he does other thing. He's playing the persona in the movie. Like, it's crazy. And people, it just went right over people's heads. That's kind of the nice thing about Codes. But speaking of things going over people's heads, Liza decides that the person she's going to get really serious about is actually someone that Judy has sussed out for her. So who is Peter Allen?
Peter Allen is an Australian, or was an Australian crooner, singer-songwriter, piano man. Judy Garland had met him during one of her Australian tours, thought he was just scrumdiddlyumptious, and was like, wouldn't you like to meet my daughter, the incomparable Liza Minnelli? They meet, they have a rapport, and they immediately fall head over heels for one another.
It's actually discovered by Judy Garland's gay husband, Mark Herron.
They're just everywhere. There's no escape, truly.
One of her many gay husbands, Mark Herron, and the Allen brothers became the opener for her on one of her late life tours. And then, Judy decides to matchmake between him and her daughter because once again, a performer in the Judy Garland show is supposed to be a really good match for your heterosexual female daughter.
Again, if he likes Gershwin more than you do,
right?
I'm not saying you can't date. I'm just saying maybe pause. I think about it for 5 seconds.
Truly.
But again, it was the era, like what you gonna do? And also, Peter Allen was very cute. He had this very clean-cut, boy next door, dirty, blonde, fringe, square jaw. I could see how she became smitten. He was very handsome.
I think Peter Allen, other than Liza Minnelli, really didn't have so many other meaningful love relationships with women. And so it's a little different from Vincent Minnelli, but similarly, it does actually seem that their marriage, at least at the beginning, was really mutual and really loving. And actually, the loving quality stayed throughout. They had the world's most amicable divorce. Before we get to what the divorce was caused by, I thought it was really interesting how much Liza really wanted us to know that they fucked.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that that's valid, honestly. If this is already your reputation, as we're talking about this episode, we've created a whole episode around it, I feel I would want to say the same thing. Because also, the idea that he was somehow holding his nose while he wanted to be intimate with her, I think it's fair for her to be like, no, we had a very active, vibrant sex life, which also makes it more shocking to her when, drumroll please, she comes home from an errand and he is fully having sex with a man in their bed.
And importantly, fully bottoming in the bed. She's very specific about the fact that it's bottoming, and that recurring vision of intrusive thoughts about seeing Peter Allen bottoming in her bed return throughout the book.
That's really rough.
It's a really big moment, and that is, Liza, that's really rough. I'm so sorry.
It is.
It's rough to be cheated on by anyone. It's rough to find out something like that. And again, this doesn't seem to be a case where what was happening here was that Peter Allen happened to be cheating on her with a man, but much more a case of Peter Allen coming to terms with the fact that he was basically a gay guy.
Yeah.
And this ended up being the thing that made their marriage not work out.
Exactly. And she also speaks to something in the book. She only makes a very brief mention of it. But I wondered the same thing was, did Judy Garland know? And typically I would say, why would you do that? But given the level of shenanigans and craziness that goes on between them during the first part of the book, I almost wouldn't put it past her to be like, I wonder if she can weather this storm the way that I know that seemed kind of evil, and I would hope that wasn't the case. But I did pause and wonder, because there is no way that Judy Garland, at the height of her powers, with what she meant to the queer community and the number of times that she knowingly interacted with gay men and gay fans, that you saw this boy and was like, do you know who you should date, my daughter? It seems like there's no way that she was that naive at that point in her life.
There was also this rumor that Mark Herron and he had something.
Girl, it's a mess. No matter how you slice it, it's a mess.
The other thing that she's really specific about in the book is that Peter Allen really helped her when Judy died and was really protective because, again, in 1969, she's early 20s, and suddenly is responsible for coordinating the funeral of this major Hollywood star who everyone wants a piece of. And the ex-husband, Sid Luft, is trying to do crazy shit. And then she gets put in this position of having to manage all of that. And he's really, really supportive during all of that and helps her figure out the right thing to do.
No, absolutely.
And then probably went to the Stonewall riots afterwards, but you know.
No, fully. And once again, they definitely love each other. If they met in 2026, they would just be
besties. 1886, they would have actually stayed married their whole life because that's what you did, right?
So one of the things that kind of struck me in the book and that I thought about when she speaks about their relationship, which was loving and very endearing, and they stayed friends until the very end, was that if you are really anyone in the life of a person like Liza Minnelli, you are a supporting player. Like, there is no way to be around someone like that who, by virtue of her talent, but also by virtue of the way she was raised, by virtue of the way that she survived, is in the spotlight, and that is the way that she knows how to move through her life. Right. I think for any man, gay, straight, or otherwise, you have to be okay with living that role. She talks about her third husband, who was straight. His name was Mark. I'm getting his last name.
Mark Giro.
Mark
He was
Giro.
the stage manager and the sculptor, right?
Yeah, he was a sculptor. And she says one of the things that kind of made their relationship fall apart was that he didn't want to be Mr. Liza Minnelli. Right. And I think that you kind of have to submit to that.
But you are Blanche.
Exactly.
Like, you really are. Like you are, unless you are Peter Sellers, right? And someone on that level, you are going to be Mr. Liza Minnelli because her, not just her fame, but also her force of personality. If you live with Liza Minnelli, then you live with Liza Minnelli, and that's Liza Minnelli, and that's what she's like.
Exactly.
All the time.
And I understand, again, how that personality or being in that role could be appealing to a gay man or a bisexual man, because like we were talking about earlier, they understand diva worship.
Yeah.
And they understand I can let her do her thing because that actually inspires me. And I actually like the fact that she's Liza Minnelli. And I like the fact that she's this tour de force. That's what I find attractive about her. Whether that attraction is romantic attraction or admiration, personal admiration, professional admiration, whatever, like that is still a driving force in a relationship, but mostly between besties and not between a married man-woman couple.
Once again, we have the bad gays question about Peter Allen. Is he a good gay, not bad, gay, bad, not gay? What do we think?
I have a soft spot for Peter Allen, despite him being Australian, which is another issue we can talk about another time. But
they can take their flat whites and go back to Melbourne where they fucking belong.
Wallabies and get out of here.
Yes.
But I think he's a good gay. I think, again, he really loved her. I have a soft spot in my heart for Peter Allen, as does Liza, and I say that he is not a bad guy.
So, speaking of people who are really obsessed with Liza as a performer, but maybe in the darkest possible way, we need to talk about David Guest.
Oof.
And we should get to David Guest by mentioning some stuff that happens in between. So basically, Liza, after Peter Allen, marries Jack Haley Jr., who is a movie producer and seems to be this really nice, cuddly, avuncular uncle with whom she doesn't particularly have a relationship and she just seems to be cheating on all the time. Poor guy. And he's really nice to her, and she just doesn't love him and thinks he's really nice and a stabilizing influence, and then just cheats on him literally all the time, sometimes with Scorsese and Baryshnikov at the same time.
Go up, sis.
She obviously stars in Cabaret, and after that, and winning the Oscar, and really kind of becoming this extremely iconic performer associated with this role, has a really difficult time launching a movie career. And she talks a lot in the book about how she wanted roles for women that were complex and important, and she was turning stuff down until that came in. And I do get that. I think there's just not a lot of parts for women that are written for someone who is as specific as Liza Minnelli is, right? Women in movies tend to be more generic. Does that make sense? You know what I mean? If you have a man like that, people think, oh, well, we just write something for them. And if you have a woman like that, people are like, oh, well, what could she really do? Mm-hmm. And then at the end of the 70s, she thinks that she's finally found her ticket to getting her big movie career back, which is that she makes this movie called New York, New York, which is a Martin Scorsese Technicolor musical starring her and Robert De Niro. If you have never seen this movie, turn this podcast off, go to wherever it is streaming and watch it. It is the most cocaine
fever
that
dream
anyone has ever done in recorded human history, and that's what happens. It's Liza Minnelli dressed as an usherette in her mother's costumes and wigs on the sets where Judy shot those movies, doing a 15-minute dance sequence called Happy Endings. It is nuts. So anyway, that movie comes out. It doesn't do so well. She also decides to have this affair with Scorsese while they're shooting, which having an affair with your director while you both peak on your cocaine addiction is just not a great move.
Never great.
She then also decides that Scorsese should direct her new Broadway show despite never having directed a Broadway show. And that ends about as well as you would imagine. And so then she marries Mark Giro, who is a sculptor and who is straight, and they want to have a family, and they have a really hard time having a family, and that's really too bad. And as the 80s go on is when she really starts to confront this topic of addiction more and more in her life. I thought it was actually really interesting the way that she talked about how her addictions didn't seem to her like addictions in comparison to her mother's, where she was like, well, Mama drank whiskey, I would drink creme de menthe.
Yeah.
And it's like just imagining, I don't know how you get drunk off a bottle of creme de menthe without puking. Like, just, oh, Jesus. Anyway, so she starts this cycle of being in and out of rehab and in and out of bad headlines and in and out of projects that are not necessarily the best for her. And as with Judy, the form that she really does the best in most consistently is these big live concert spectaculars. That's where she's always fully delivering. So the 90s kind of roll to a close, and her joints are starting to give out from the pressures of the crazy performing that she's been doing. She has hip replacements, she has knee replacements. Someone who is in recovery for prescription pills has a knee replaced, which means that they give you opioids because otherwise you would die of pain. You would go into shock. But then it's really difficult because you're on opioids, and she probably shouldn't have been, but what do you do? And then she kind of hits this low point when, and I thought it was actually really interesting in the book that she changed the story, because what it was at the time was that she had been bitten by a tick and gotten this crazy case of encephalitis, which is an infection of the spine.
She does
and basically, she, because of this encephalitis, was told that she would never walk or sing or dance or perform. And then she starts fighting her way back in recovery. In the book, she says that it was drugs and alcohol that caused that.
Oh, for sure. But she does say that she said it was a tick.
And then in the middle of this kind of like, she's beaten all of the odds by walking again, but she's still in a really not great way. Like there is a kind of famous video of Liza singing "You Are Not Alone" at the Michael Jackson memorial concert. And the fact that she got up and sang a year after being told she would never stand or walk or sing is incredible, but it's not good, and she does not look good. She looks in a rough way. The producer of that show is a man named David Guest. So who is David Guest?
David Guest, in my opinion, is the devil incarnate. I really have nothing good to say about this man. He was a producer. He slithered up to her after this performance she did at the Michael Jackson tribute show. I was kind of like, hey, little lady, I can make you a star again. I just want to read a quick passage. This is the page before chapter 10, which is called The Marriage from Hell. So just to give you an idea of how she feels about her fourth marriage. She's speaking about Guest. She says, he was a producer, in quotes.
The quotes
already.
from the producer are diabolical.
Please remember I had a stepfather who was a producer, and we all know how that ended. This new guy claimed to love me. He claimed to be very rich. He claimed he didn't want me to work. He claimed he wanted to take care of me. He vowed to change a lot of things. And honey, he did. But everything else he said, besides and the, was a lie.
Oh!
If I could wave a magic wand, I would have avoided this creep like salmonella. I'd have kicked his bony ass to the ground wearing stilettos.
Love.
Which is something he accused me later of doing. How absurd. Why on earth would I ruin a perfectly beautiful shoe? This idiot should have been nothing more than an ugly speed bump in the road. So she's pulling no punches. With all her other husbands in this book, I will say, whether they were madly in love, whether they weren't, whether they were gay, whether they're straight, she has a very kind of palpable admiration and appreciation for all of them. And she says, hey, even though this didn't work out, we remain friends. I understand why it didn't work out, whatever the situation would be. With David Guest, she's like, this was a mistake. I should have never laid eyes on this person.
He's a terrible man, and I'm glad he's dead.
And I'm glad he's dead.
When he dies, she describes feeling thrilled and happy.
Yeah. So that's how she introduces him in the book. The one thing I will say, and I'm not trying to say this had any sort of like grand meaning for her, maybe it did, he kind of looks like Vincent Minnelli.
Just to be clear, he looks like Vincent Minnelli if Vincent Minnelli had LaToya Jackson's plastic surgeon.
And was a wax candle.
So they really rush into this marriage. And he's basically like, Liza's this great star. She just needs to be like kept on the straight and narrow and whipped into shape. And so I'm going to marry her and sweep her off her feet. And we're going to make her this great star again and return her to the top. And she's not going to have to work that hard. And then this all gets tied to this marriage, and they have this crazy-ass wedding where 17,000 guests are there. Michael Jackson and Elizabeth Taylor are the best man and the best... And David Guest's face is weirder than Michael Jackson's in this picture, which is saying something. And he describes being at this wedding, and it's really sad. She's at this wedding, and she actually realizes that she shouldn't be doing this. But she feels so trapped by her decision to kind of go with someone who, at a time when she was really vulnerable and recovering from this illness and really at a career low point, was telling her that she could do it. And he was very controlling. He apparently wouldn't let her see friends. He would try to control what she ate. He made her lose all this weight. And then there's this kind of career moment associated with him where she does these shows called Liza's Back. And it's also, weirdly, when she starts playing Lucille Astero on Arrested Development, which is, I am so happy for Liza that she got this late career moment of everyone seeing what a genius comic actress she is
Yeah.
in a way that's both completely her persona, but also clear that she's actually more than just a punchline.
100%.
It's great.
Yeah, I love her on that show so much. And again, this was the era where I was really getting into her as a celebrity and as a performer. But I remember vividly when that wedding happened. I remember that it's her, David Guest, Michael Jackson, Elizabeth Taylor, and they all look so bizarre. They all look this very like uncanny valley. Are these even real people?
Right.
Vibes. What does she see in him? Surely she can't find him attractive. So what's going on? And to read in the book what was actually happening as a fan, I'm not gonna lie, it was closure because I was like, okay, she was actually just fully taken advantage of.
Right.
Wasn't like she was even, oh, I was in love with this person. What was I thinking? I was drunk, I was on pills, whatever. She was like, I was at a point where I was also broke for the first time probably ever. He promised me all these things. I could see it happening. I could see the vision. And I thought, okay, well, if what I need to do to get these things is to marry this person that I'm not attracted to, worse things have happened in Hollywood. It is what it is. But I think she didn't really understand how bad it was going to be.
Right.
And how it would set her back.
And the fact that he was going to try to actually steal shit.
Yeah. And then he did.
And he did. Those famous Warhol portraits of Liza, they replaced them with fake ones, and he was trying to sell them, which is insane.
He stole the Sally Bowles bowler.
Yes.
She doesn't know where it is.
Mopped it. It's insane. Also, the weird thing about David Guest is, what is David Guest's sexuality? It's kind of hard to imagine him having one, but I guess he does get referred to as being a gay guy sometimes.
She doesn't go into it because there's so many other things to talk about with this evil man that she doesn't really feel the need to get into it. The only thing that kind of hints at it in the book, she says he wore more eye makeup than I did.
Which she does wear a lot of eye makeup.
Literally, it's one of her many charms. And she also says if I lost one of my fake eyelashes, I knew where to find it.
Oh my
Which was
God.
in his bathroom. So to me, that is like a subtle dig at being like, I don't know what was happening sexually, but it had nothing to do with me.
Right.
I read online during my research for this that Elton John was very much trying to out him, which typically I don't condone outing people, but when it comes to David Guest, use all of the weapons in your arsenal to get this man out of here. Do what you need to do. And apparently he was like, I'm going to do it. And then David Guest fully threatened his life or tried to put a hit out on it or something, allegedly. It was really messy.
These people, David Guest is one of the messiest people in recorded human history. And it is bizarre that he had the kind of accoutrements of success that he did at that one moment, where the thing that gets people thinking that he's actually a producer is the fact that he manages to gain the trust of a late life Michael Jackson. We are not talking about the world's greatest judge of character in that moment in his life.
Yeah,
You know?
it's like all the wrong stars aligned. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where if he was a good person, this would have been great for Liza. But instead he was a bad person, and what happened happened.
Also, if it wasn't this extremely particular circumstance, they never would have gotten married.
They never would have met.
David Guest, good gay, bad gay, not bad, not gay. I'm going to go ahead and say bad gay.
Diabolical.
Like truly, truly diabolical.
Diabolical. Even if he wasn't gay, bad gay.
The post-David Guest period of Liza's life is when there's lots of memorable quotes from her about like how much she is not going to get married again. Where she's just like, are you fucking kidding me? Never again. No, you couldn't pay me. Done, done, done. And I get why. And the person who has been a figure in her life since the 80s, actually, but who really steps up in recent years is Michael Feinstein. And what's interesting is the book is told to Michael Feinstein. So who is Michael Feinstein and how do they meet? His picture is on the back cover, apparently. I don't know. I listened to the audiobook, so I didn't see the cover.
So they meet at a party. He is a piano man and a songwriter, a singer-songwriter. And he's 28, I believe. It's the 80s. She's at the peak of her Liza-ism. And they meet. They are immediately into each other. She has a crush on him. It's pretty clear in the book that she is into him.
And once again, just to be clear, Michael Feinstein is potentially the gayest man in recorded human history.
Exactly.
In every possible affectation, mannerism, everything about this man. Again, he literally is more into Gershwin than he is into you. Like, one of the things that he did, which is actually the thing in Michael Feinstein's career that's the most important and influential, was he did a lot of archiving work on kind of original versions of many of those songs and compositions of the Great American Songbook.
Yeah.
I think he started out working for the widow of Ira Gershwin, right?
I think so, yeah, exactly. And because they meet in the 80s and not the 50s, he is openly gay.
So she's like, Michael, let's go on a date. And he's Liza.
I'm good. He's like, let's go to Spago's.
Right.
Like that's...
It's so 80s. The 80s LA of going with Liza Minnelli to Spago.
100%.
And Joan Collins is there. And
literally, I'm so jealous. Like,
right?
I'm like, that sounds amazing. I think it's understandable that they start this very intense kind of best friendship.
Right.
And he also, I believe, is not fangirling over her, which I think she really appreciates, even though he is obviously cut from the same cloth. He kind of sees her as this sort of, I don't know, equal, but he sees her as who she is, which is this person, this woman is very talented and has a lot to give and isn't like Liza. So they hit it off. They became very close friends. She helps him by putting on some of his early shows and introducing him to all the Hollywood A-listers.
Yeah, and she's like booking him to play, because he's playing private parties. And she's booking him to play parties where he's going to play for someone who will book him to play a club or whatever. Yeah. And he is a working, successful, touring jazz singer and cabaret performer. The other thing is Michael Feinstein seems to have absolutely no tolerance for her substance use, where a lot of her friends are absolutely enabling it or don't really see the problem or are taking part in it themselves or whatever. And Michael Feinstein is, to his credit, genuinely the whole time being like, girl, stop this.
He's very much her champion. And in the book, their love, their best friendship seems very genuine and real. It doesn't seem like he is in any way exploiting her or she helps him, but honestly, he also helps her a lot. It is, again, this thing of him being her best gay, where he's like, your husband wants to steal your Warhols, let me go to the storage real quick and sort this out, which is something that she definitely
needs. Yes. Her husband was actually trying to steal her Warhols, which is fucking insane.
Exactly. The one thing I will say about the book, because the book is as told to Michael Feinstein, it also has
ghostwriters.
Ghostwriters.
Yeah, who told what to who? Because the telling.
This is what I'm saying.
And there has been, I mean, the one thing that I will say about this book and about Michael Feinstein, there's been a lot of weird commentary about this Michael Feinstein thing where people are talking about elder abuse or saying that she's not whatever. And like, I think that she's not in the best way at the moment.
Yeah.
And I think she probably has some really good days and some slightly less good days, as many people who are fucking 80 do. But certainly, I don't think there's any reason to believe that Michael Feinstein is stealing her money, like mismanaging her in any way, or that he doesn't have her best interest at heart. But what I think there is a problem with is that a lot of the stuff around this book has just been handled in a way that I don't think is really benefiting of her diva status. As we record this yesterday, this quote-unquote scandal broke where everyone is mad that their Liza signed copy was signed with an auto pen. Mm-hmm. And if people catch you doing that, the answer is obvious. The answer is Liza Minnelli is an 80-year-old woman. She has tremors. She is remarkable and blah, 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 and connects with her fans, and we wanted to make sure that fans could get a signed copy, and this is what we did. Instead, they're pretending that the completely identical, down to the tracing paper, everything is the same signatures on all of these books are drawn by her with a marker.
Yeah.
And like, why? Yeah. Why are you doing that? Why is the person putting out that press release Randy Rainbow's publicist? This is Liza fucking Minnelli. You need better representation. Or, for example, we talked about this the other day, actually, but when they released that single that came out with this song, when they released that song that came out with this book, okay, the idea of a new Liza Minnelli song, obviously I'm in. Maybe she doesn't want to sing in the way that she used to. So the idea that you're going to have a hunty gay dance track where she just gets to talk into a microphone and everyone's like, yes, that's great. And there are so many producers who would have dropped everything and tripped over the train of their dress to go produce this single. And instead they do this weird AI thing that just sounds awful. And no, this should be cunty and good because you're Liza fucking Minnelli. And I think the person to blame for that kind of suburban middle roadness around a lot of this stuff is him, because he's definitely the one who's coordinating all of it.
Absolutely. This happens with some older divas as well, where you're not on top of current trends, your team isn't what it used to be, and you are not as edgy as used to be, which for her specifically I find is a shame, because what we were talking about earlier, bridging the gap between vaudeville and kind of edgy, on the edge of your seat persona is what makes Liza so compelling. And again, she's 80. I would be fine with her doing nothing. Just chilling in LA in her house. Like, I don't
a lot of what she's doing.
Yeah, fully. But it's like there is something where if you're gonna do it, get people in who can revitalize at least the brand. If not her, then at least the brand, the persona. The only thing that I'll say about the book is because it's, as I said, as told to Michael Feinstein, if there was any conflict between them, anything that goes beyond the surface of "you're my best friend, I love you forever," we're never going to hear about it because he is co-authoring the book. And he's such a prominent figure in the book. It's not like...
And he really comes in he reads the introduction. And then the other thing I just want to say is this. I'm Michael Feinstein, and I am trying to beat back the allegations in the memoir of Liza Minnelli that I wrote or controlled. Having her 14 times be like, he's handling my money fine. Everything is great. It just isn't well done in that way. Like so many of these things. I just think he's obviously very good at what he does. Yeah. But it's not particularly my taste, his singing, but he's very good at what he does. He's good at it. Yeah. But I just don't think that he's that good at this kind of publicity game. And I think that's why both his presence in her life has become so weirdly controversial among the fans. Yeah. And why he feels the need to very inelegantly put all of these sections in the book being like, Michael and his husband, who has so much money, and they would never need mine because his husband is so rich and they're so nice and they take care of me and it's great and they got my finances back on track. And it's like, I'm sure they did actually, but it's a little, methinks, doth protest too much.
Yeah, I agree. There is also a sort of air of being besieged in the book a little bit, where you're in the introduction, he's like, she hated the Halston series on Netflix and blah, blah. And it's, yeah, okay. Are you just a best friend supporter? How much of a hand do you have in this legacy? I'd really like to know, not because I even distrust you as a fan. You clearly have her best interest at heart. I think whatever is going on, they clearly love each other. They're clearly best friends. Clearly he wants nothing but the best of her. That I don't really question. But as someone who loves her as a fan and who's interested in her legacy, I would like things to be just a little bit more above board instead of having this air of I'm her protector and everything must go through me. Right. Like what? Why? You know what I mean?
Right, right. And then also, if you're her protector and you're trying to stop her from getting bogged down in bullshit, why are you starting unnecessary fights with Lady Gaga? Why are you starting unnecessary fights with the Netflix Halston series? Like, why are you generating headlines through she hated this or she didn't like this or blah, blah, blah? You could just let her live in dignity and not push that kind of stuff and not use her to get clickbait headlines. That would be nice.
Although I will say, just to tie this off, at the end of the book, there is a passage that's extremely touching where she talks about she leaves New York. She's had this very difficult time with her health. She wants to be on the West Coast with the weather and her family and everything. And Michael Feinstein, his husband, a couple other close friends, make sure that she has an apartment, a condo with all of her awards, all of her artwork, all the decorations that she wants. And it is really touching that her friends who did support her through all her health problems, the addiction issues, everything, at the end of the book, rally together with their influence, their resources, and give her the type of home that she should have for her twilight years. I did find that to be a very way to wrap up that story.
And that's why I find Michael Feinstein to be a good guy in the end of the day, because I think there is, I mean, I always think of that Princess Margaret quote where she said something about how she hated homosexuals, and someone said, well, in that case, you're going to have a very lonely old age, right? I think one of the best things that gay men can do, I mean, the worst possible version of gay men at the end of a diva's life is Judy Garland's speed-addicted demon twink manager husbands at the end of the 60s. Yeah. And the best possible version of it is something like this, where it's these people to whom she has given so much stepping up to give her a dignified home. And I think, as much as I don't think Liza needs to do anything else, I'm happy she wrote this book. I think it's really fun, and it's been really fun to talk about it with you, Cameron.
Thank you.
So if people want to find you, where can they find you?
They go to cooked.site. That's COOKED.site. That's my website. You can subscribe to Cooked, which is my fresh new newsletter, which is essays, playlists, music, diva worship, films, everything you would want from someone who is chronically gay and into pop culture. Exactly.
And as Britney Spears once said, everybody's been doing emails. So that's been our show. That's been our show. You can find us on Blue Sky at badgayspod.bluesky.social, and you can find me on Blue Sky at benwritesthings.bluesky.social, and we'll be back soon with more episodes of Bad Gays. Until then, bye.
Bye.